Young. I'm roped into being the host for tonight, so you get to work with me and learn a little bit about our panel first, and then we'll get started with the debate. So we have a group here that we've brought in from the community, and I will bring my crib notes to make sure I get everything correct for them. And what we're going to do initially here is spend a few minutes just talking about the issues and getting warmed up and give our candidates a little time to get adjusted, and then exactly at 6 o'clock we will start the debate. So first of all, let me introduce to you the fellow who will be controlling the actual debate, AJ Pennybianco. He is a Covington native and started with the Covington Police Force, and then went through several other police forces, Buena Vista, and eventually became chief of police there, and chief of police for Middleburg, which we were just talking about, which sounds like it was a lot of fun, and president of the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police and Foundation. And he will be leading the questions and leading us in the debate today. Next to him, to your left, his right, is Julie J.T. Stanley. She's a lifelong resident of Covington, and so did not leave for Buena Vista or Middleburg, and is a retired educator, medical technologist, and information specialist. Julie dedicated 23 years to the Alleghany Regional Hospital, Lewis Gale, and 3 years to Bath County Community Hospital, and 17 years at Alleghany County Public Schools. And she's been serving us for her whole career, both in teaching and in being medical. So if any of us go down, we know who to turn to. Next to her is Gene Mundy at the end of the table there. He's a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel with over 40 years as a military officer, management consultant, corporate executive, and now entrepreneur. So, and panel member. A whole new business for you. Hopefully you can do a whole profession of panel member. And trying to hide behind me is Corey Bowles. Corey is a longtime foster mom and educator. So we're fully covered in terms of being taught here. Corey currently serves the Alleghany Highlands Public Schools, where she has been a health sciences teacher, athletic trainer, interim athletic director, and a behaviorologist. Did I say behaviorologist? Oh, good. Since 2003. So what we're going to do is we've got some of our issues. We've all been studying up on what's been going on and some of the surveys and things. And now I will let AJ guide us into discussing today and what some of the issues the candidates will be facing.
All right, so if you see me, it's AJ or Chief AJ. Don't try that last name. It's going to be a fun debate, we think. It's going to be a debate where we're going to... I'm going to sing then if it's not working. There. Is it working now? There we go. Sorry about that. Oh, that's much better. I can hear myself. So, call me AJ or Chief AJ. AJ's perfectly fine. Last name's kind of a doozy. But you did, actually. And just for all of you, it's Italian. It means white bread. We took these questions that were developed not by the panel, but by polls that were put out in the community. So the issues that will be discussed today are issues that the constituency has that they'd like to see the answers before they cast their vote, which is, you know, how the system should work. Kind of try and nail people down, so to speak. In Clifton Forge, there's concerns with hiring. There's properties that need to be repaired. There's I got to put my glasses on because I'm on that age, actually. We're going to try and get some of the candidates to ID the issues that they see and about transparency. And each of these members up here, I'm sure you guys have some opinions on any of these, and feel free to chime in anytime you want to. You know, Covenant has its own set of issues, and, you know, economic development, that's always, even in Clifton Forge, that's going to be an issue. Tax options, how the cities are run, how the town is run for Clifton Forge. And then when we start into the school board, we're going to talk about some of the issues that are going on right now. You know, school safety is a big issue that's not just a Alleghany County centric issue. It's everywhere. And I recall I'm a retired police chief, and I've been a chief now 5 times, and each and every time, school safety was a top priority. So it's not just something that's concerned about here, it's concerned everywhere. We're fortunate in Alleghany County. Chris Fisher just got hired to be the first school safety, I'm not even sure his title, but I know Chris, superintendent of school safety, and he is a good individual, and I think he will lend some credibility to that position, so I'm really excited to see that happen. I'm going to turn it over to any of you up here on the panel. If you'd like to chime in and talk about what you have concerns or what you'd like to see answered, please make sure you do.
I think this one works.
There you go.
No, AJ, appreciate the, kind of the opening and one of the takeaways that I had just looking through the issues is the similarity across all 3, I think, groups that we're going to talk to tonight. We're going to listen to their, kind of their feedback and from the sense of, from the community, the questions about leadership, economic development, safety, drugs. It's a common theme, and I think across the Highlands, I think if you obviously have lived here long enough, you've been exposed to it in some capacity. So it's interesting to kind of to see the thread, and looking forward to the candidates kind of unpacking those issues and having a chance to speak to that.
All right. So we talked about how we how we came up with the questions, and at what we want you guys to know too, at the end of each debate, there's going to be a time when we're going to open it up to see if there's any questions from the audience. Again, this is not a debate about what we want to know. It's about what you want to know, who's going to cast that vote. As it goes, as far as how this is going to happen, we're going to start with Clifton Forge, then we're going to move to Covington, and then we're going to move to the school board. And because there's 3 separate elections and you can't really tie them all into one. And each locality has its own set of challenges. So when this opens up, please don't be shy. If you have questions, or if you have something positive or negative to say, please say it. There'll be some folks walking around that will have portable mics, and we're about 50% sure they'll work, since 50% of these work. But no, that's what we hope to do, and that's what we hope to get out of this, is that before you cast your vote, you get a good idea of what people are standing for that you're going to throw that vote for. And as far as how I got involved in this, I grew up in Covington. I went to Alleghany County, and then I went to Alleghany High School. So I've been 2 of the 3 mascots that you have. I've been a Colt and a Mountaineer. And so I have that tie to Covington. I grew up here, and then I moved away when I became a police officer. And so that's how I came. So I have knowledge of the community, but I don't have necessarily a dog in the fight. So I don't have a specific person I would like to see win or lose. So I can be completely unbiased. And if they don't answer the question, expect me to say, that was a lot of words, but it didn't say anything. Can you answer the question? It's not because I'm being mean. It's because you deserve the answers. You deserve to know what the answer is to the questions. And again, these are not our questions. These are questions that the public raised, and we put them into a little bit better verbiage so that they flow into a question. But again, it's about giving you the power to know who to cast your vote for based on what your beliefs or your concerns are. And we hope that you'll be able to take advantage of that. We've got about 5 minutes before the live show goes on, and I don't know if any of the candidates are here yet. Hang on one second. We're getting ready to go with the.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
was on a minute ago. I made some noises. There we are. So yeah, I was going to interrupt you there because I think what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the wall that heals, which is in Covington right now, and is a really remarkable experience. It's a scaled down version, a 3/4 scale replica of the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., which, if you've ever been to, is an astonishing place to be. We were just talking about that a little while earlier. But this one travels the country to give people who aren't able to go to DC that sort of experience. And it's finally arrived here, and they've set it up down at Jackson Park, and it's worth the trip. It's worth really something to see the number of young people that gave their lives in that conflict. But I believe we have a video that explains it that we'll be showing here, and that will let you see what you can have the opportunity to come view through Sunday, I believe. And here comes the screen. Slowly. Wasn't there an Austin Powers gag like this where it just kept going? Yeah.
The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund many years ago created a replica of the wall that travels to communities around the country that we call the Wall That Heals. This mobile replica really is about taking the names home to communities large and small to allow people to have that same kind of healing experience, to come and show their respect, to remember those 58,000 whose names are on the wall, as well as the 2.7 million Vietnam veterans who served who returned home. It's a chance to look back and pay their respects to those who answered the call of service to their country, especially those who made the ultimate sacrifice.
To be able to take this around to communities that may not even know anything about the wall or the war, especially for the young kids that come out and see these things and get educated on it. People need to know what these 58,000 plus gave their lives for, whether they want to hear about it or not. They need to know.
The experience at the Wall That Heals is as you go from one end in toward the center, the wall actually rises up above you so that it's taller than you are, which is one of the key design aspects of the wall in Washington. As you go down one of the walkways, the wall actually rises above you. And I think that has a psychological impact where you actually understand that there is something important here. It is so large that it creates an emotion of power, and you understand you're supposed to stop, you're supposed to think about it. And in this case, you can read the names, you can see your reflection in the wall, and you have to remember why those names are inscribed. These are people who sacrificed their lives for our country.
I get this feeling in my stomach, the pride that you see. When we went into San Dimas, the kids were all on the streets with their American flags. That always chokes me up because I know what it is to serve this country. And we as Americans sometimes don't understand the cost of war. Hate the war all you want, but don't hate the warrior.
I met a couple guys here this morning, and one guy, I walked up to him and he started crying already. Man, that makes me feel good. Not that he's crying, but that he's here to have bonding with someone and being able to find his buddy on the wall. It means so much.
And we're back. And remarkably right on time. It's 6 o'clock, and so we can formally kick off events with the American Legion Covington Post 4 color team, who will bring us forward the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. Gentlemen, if you would, please. So as they present the flag, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we will bring our candidates in, and AJ will be able to introduce us to them and get things going with the questions that he has. This will probably be formatted as individual questions for each of them. But now let us do the formal arrival of the flag. States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. So, let us get things underway. So if we could bring forward our candidates, our first ones are for the Town Council of Clifton Forge. And let me switch my page so that I give correct information here. Let me tell you a little bit about the format as we bring them up. That would be Michael Foster, Jeffrey Irvine, and Carl Wolf, where we've conveniently given you little name tags so you actually know where to sit. We try to make it easy. So the format tonight, it's a debate format. Candidates are asked a question, and then about a question. So now, AJ, let me hand it to you.
All right. Excuse me, my mic's on. So, gentlemen, thank you for showing up tonight. It's important in the election process to let the individuals out there that are going to cast a vote know what your views are. So we've flipped a coin, actually, I think, to see who the town, specifically regarding nepotism. In light of these concerns, how would you approach establishing clear guidelines for hiring that promote equity and integrity?
Thank you, and thank you for having me, first of all. It's an interesting question, not one that I've heard a whole lot of discussion about around town. However, I think that in a small town, you're always going to have people that rise to the occasion, and I think that if the question specifically is about, government hiring, then yes, I do think that there should be an independent review process, that any candidate for any job, if there is some relation there to, a local a government official, there should be an independent counsel or group that can approve those hiring, and that should be transparent to the public. I do think that transparency is a big issue, and this town council has done a very good job of being transparent. I encourage anyone who has any questions to come to the town council meetings, to come to the community gatherings. But specifically as it relates to nepotism, that would be my answer. I think that an independent hiring group should be formed if there is any family relation involved.
Mr. Irvin, you have a minute to respond, please.
Is it on? Hiring, I don't think it's any nepotism because, we have it depends on what department. The department head will be at the meeting, the town manager, and I think he has a couple more that sets in on hiring. The problem is you have to have the right people for the job. You have to hire qualified people, and qualified people is just not putting in right now.
All right, thank you, sir. And just one follow-up on that. Do you currently know what the policy is for nepotism as far as how it's defined, or who can manage who as far as family relations?
I mean, like I said, I think it's fair. I think we're doing a great job at it. I mean, I don't know what else. Maybe we could have some outside people set in on the interviews. Maybe we can do that.
Thank you, sir. And keep your mic on because you get the next question. Mr. Irvin, staying with hiring practices. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped you, Mr. Wolf. You get to respond. It's our first time.
Is this on? Yeah, it's on. Well, here's how I feel about it is we as a council, we hired Chuck to handle all the hiring and firing in town, and we have to trust who we put in that position to do the right thing. And sometimes it doesn't seem like the right thing, but I've seen some qualified people get hired, and I've seen some qualified people not get hired. And it's a very hard situation in a small town like this when you got 3 or 4 people applying for the same job and all of them are qualified. So I always just, whoever I put in position, like we put Chuck in position, is let him determine. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer, sir. Mr. Irvin, you get the next question. We're staying with the hiring practices. What actions would you take to refine recruitment process for every job within a town, and how would you measure its effectiveness in attracting top talent? And again, the goal being top talent.
Again, I think we're doing a good job at recruiting. VML helps us at the top jobs. We use Covington, Virginian. We use all social media. I think we go out to Roanoke Times in some instances. But like I said, it's qualified people. A lot of people are working at home now. I mean, and a lot of qualified people are not trying for these jobs. At like Public Works or something like that, a lot of people nowadays, and being honest, just don't want to work for $12 or $13 an hour.
All right, Mr. Wolf, you have 1 minute to respond.
It's hard to find and keep qualified people with the pay scale we have. The pay scale is a big deal down here in Clifton Fords, and we hire police officers, and I think it costs us $20,000 to train one of them, and they stay here 2 years, and they move on somewhere else. And someone told me, said the police officer job down here is a single man's job, because if he's married, he's looking for more money, and you can't blame him for leaving, and I think we keep a pretty good crew on Public Works. It's not too much of a turnover there. They just enjoy working for us. So to hire top qualified individuals, the pay scale somehow has to go up. Thank you.
And Mr. Foster, you have 1 minute to respond.
Changing the recruitment process is challenged, as these two gentlemen have pointed out, with respect to the pay scale. But I think that we can do a better job of organizing and coordinating the town website. We do use social media. You do see it there on occasion. I think that we could do a better job reaching more broadly. I think one of the aspects of Clifton Forge that is so hopeful for the future is that a lot of people are moving here, and they're moving here because the people in this town are good people and they're welcoming. The first responders in this town, need to have a big shout out because they are generally underpaid. They are hard to keep around. That's very true. So I think it's really broadening the base of what we're doing on the recruiting side. But that's what I would change.
Go ahead.
I think it says a lot as of right now, unless somebody quit today. Our town is fully staffed. And I don't know if any Alleghany County or Covington can say that, but as of right now, I think we're fully staffed.
Thank you. You mentioned the pay scale. Is that something that, as candidates, you would want to look at, maybe, and just a yes or no on that, raising that pay scale to make it more attractive so that your law enforcement officers, which you're correct, it does cost a ton to train, will be interested in staying? It's sort of like when you're being married, sometimes it's cheaper to keep her. But, it's cheaper to keep a police officer than it is to go out and hire a new police officer at $20,000 every other year. Could that money be used to put into salaries? Just a yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, I'd love to give them raises. And as of now, we've gave them raises every year for the last 5 or 6 years in a row.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Put my glasses back on so I can see. Mr. Wolf, this question's for you. It's a little bit long-winded before we get there. But Clifton Forge is a beautiful community. It has traditional walkable downtown. In fact, I walked it today. I spent some time doing that. I ate at Michael's and the New York pizza. And so enjoyed that. It's got a town that will draw crowds. I remember growing up, and we would come here for the events. But like with everything else, there are two sides to this coin. Contrasting this beauty are some homes and some storefronts that have fallen into disrepair. And the question is, what strategies would you propose to not only address dilapidated properties, but also to promote sustainable redevelopment within the community?
Well, I'm a contractor also, and I've remodeled 11 homes since I've been here. We have, out of those 11 homes, I think 90% of them are people who migrated here, who aren't from here. They migrated here and they live in these homes. And, housing's always been a big issue. I told them one time before, Dabney and Liberty University started the same year, 50 years ago. What did they do that we didn't do? We housing. We didn't supply housing. We had a great forestry department, and if someone in Newport News wanted to go to forestry, they went to Penn State or South Carolina because they had housing. That's where they get housing and get their forestry degree. So, I don't know how we fix these properties up, but housing is a big deal with me here in this community.
All right, Mr. Foster, you have 1 minute to respond.
I think both the commercial real estate and the residential property issues are real. We've had that question a number of times, and we all kind of have our approach to it. And I've had discussions with a lot of people about it. And looking at the laws that are on the books in Richmond that can be adopted by the Town Council of Clifton Forge that will allow us to charge a vacant property tax. Essentially, it's not a tax, it's a registry, is the first step. And what I've said before is that I would love to work with our delegate and our senator in Richmond, assuming they're still in office. They will be until next year, but to really sponsor legislation that will help small towns like Clifton Forge really take on this issue. There are some localities that have taken it on head on and had a lot of really great success about it. And there are also federal programs for, I guess my time's up.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Irvin, would you like to respond? You have a minute.
Yes, there's just so much we can do. I mean, we've got buildings, stricter building codes. This council has added, I know, of 2 to 3 stricter building codes in the last 2 or 3 years. We have a new building inspector, which would be the first in Clifton Forge, which he is a licensed building inspector, and he does business management, and he's the building inspector, plus he checks out the code enforcer. And he's in class now, and he will be licensed, but as of now, taking the class, he is officially a building inspector. That's the first time Clifton has had that. We're working right now on as Mike said, as the building registry for the old buildings in town that we can find them for. We are working on that. This council has been working on that for about maybe a year or so. Our lawyer now is working on the paperwork so we can get everything legally so we can put it into law.
All right, thank you. And maybe something to consider, there are other options besides just, finding a building in disrepair and pointing it out. There are grants, there are federal grants that can help with that. I believe the Alleghany Fund, I think, is still a thing, and that may be able something. So I'm hoping that at some point, if you were elected, that you will look towards some of the creative avenues to try and fix those. And we'll go ahead with question number 4, which is for Mr. Foster. The desire for change is frequently what drives challengers to run. Unfortunately, while many crave a challenge, they often hesitate to embrace it. While many crave change, they often hesitate to embrace it. If elected, you'll have the chance to introduce new ideas. So, what would be your top priority to address? And can you share an experience where you successfully initiated change in a resistant environment? You have 90 seconds.
Sure. My top priority has been from the start to rehabilitate the downtown. As a downtown small business owner, I want to have it full. I want to have neighbors. And to your point, there are grants out there, and there are opportunities to go after that. And I've had discussions with, as I said, a lot of people. In my lifetime, I have taken on many opportunities where change was certainly not fun. I was a consultant for 5 years, and when I showed up, people knew that people were going to get fired. And in the bankruptcy world, you don't have a whole lot of time to make relationships, but you absolutely have to have relationships with those people, especially the ones that are most fearful of change. And I think that of all of the conversations that I've had with Clifton Forge residents over the last 2 years, to a person, I don't know that there was one that didn't say, we really need something to happen. There will be the naysayers, there will be the challenges there, but I think we have to stick to it. And I've been down that road before, and I know that at the end of the day, what really boils down to is developing relationships with people who are supportive of it and those who are not.
Mr. Irvin, you have a minute to respond, please.
As you're talking about grants for the businesses, we did put in for a grant and with cooperation with Covington. We worked with Covington or whatever, and it was $1 million grant for us and $1 million for Covington. That made it all one step away from being done. So it's not like we're not doing it. We have put in for grants. Of course, you're gonna have some naysayers. I'd like to see this done or that done or whatever. No town is perfect. But I think Clifton has come a long way. We've got more road paving done in the last year or two than's been done in 10 years. New sidewalks with handicap ramps, that's brand new. I mean, we're moving forward. I mean, it takes time. You can't do everything at once, but as to the naysayers, I say sit back and watch. It's some great things coming for Clifton. You just have to give it a little time.
And Mr. Wolf, you have a minute.
Change. My favorite saying is change is like surgery. Hurts for a little while, but usually it's for good. You know, at the same time, the codes, certain codes hold us back. We have to change our codes out. You know, I'd paint the town red, but we're in a historical district. You know, I like bright colors and buildings, and I would bring all the billboards back on interstate. You know, I was telling Chuck the other day that when you go to West Virginia and you see a hamburger on the sign, you know what's coming the next exit. I'm getting off or getting a hamburger. We have a little green sign that says food this way. You know, so change, we got to look to the future. You know, we're not making decisions just for us. We're making decisions for our grandchildren.
Thank you. And I don't have a follow-up question for that, but I will just say to the people watching, just so you know, councils cannot do what they call spot zoning. They can't say, we don't like that property, so we're going to zone against it. So just so you know that that's how that works. Question number 5, Mr. Irvin. Social media can be a double-edged sword. It highlights your successes while it amplifies your failures. And critics are quick to take shots. Despite its challenge, it can serve as a powerful tool for community engagement. If elected, what is your main objective and how do you plan to communicate that message effectively to the people?
Again, you said it right. Social media is a double-edged sword. You know, sometimes it's great for us. Sometimes I try to stay off of it and not answer a lot of things. But sometimes that don't work. When false information is given online, sometimes I try to correct it. Maybe that's a mistake, but I try to do it there. I think our webpage is being worked out. You know, it has some faults. Everything has some faults when you put something brand new. We're working on it now. Things are changing on it. Like I say, social media is good to us sometimes and bad to us. I mean, but you've got to, again, you have to have patience. We can't do everything at once, you know. And I would like for social media to be all good for town. Get out there and let it everybody see what we're doing, and that's what we try to do. Everything that we do as a council or whatever is on our web page. We use other social media to get the word out. The biggest thing, you have to come to the meetings. I mean, I've been 13 years on council, and I've seen one person out there, and sometimes I see 50. But I mean, you've got to come to the meetings and tell us what you want. I mean, we just can't guess what you need. We try our best.
Mr. Wolf, you have a minute to respond.
Social media. I'm way behind. When I got on council, it's been a struggle for me to email and receive emails. So I get my wife, I said, help me. What's this say? A pastor told me a long time ago, I've been in business 38 years and I still paper file everything. I still receive everything paper. So social media, I know what it can do and I know the power it can do. You know, and getting someone to, this is what I want you to do. Put this on there. I can do it now. You know, I used to can, but it's a powerful tool. It can hurt you or it can help you. And I do know the power of social media. Thank you.
Mr. Foster.
Double-edged sword is an understatement, and I think everybody here, you know, can agree with that. but it can be used for the better. And there will always be trolls out there that will react negatively and throw shade and question the decisions that are being made. But I think that if you continue to lean into it and use it in a positive way to get better transparency, increased transparency, with what's going on with town council, I think it would be a positive thing. The most recent example of the blow up of social media has been about the murals here in town. And if you take a step back and you take the negativity out of it, what you find is that there is a town full of people that are passionate about having murals. And we can take that and use it for the better. Within the confines of the ARB, but at the same time, you take that passion and you use it for the positive, even if they disagreed with what happened.
Thank you. Food for thought. If you guys get elected, any of you, I guess 2 of you will. There should be a position somewhere in the town infrastructure that sends a consistent message through social media. So that may be something that you guys consider adding to the workforce. And I know you guys are looking at tight budgets, as we always are, but that's such an informational tool that's used by a majority of people at this time. So, Mr. Wolf, we'll go with the next question straight to you. Being on council will necessitate sacrifices in your personal life and commitments to your business. Considering all of that, what motivates you to run for town council, and how much time are you prepared to be able to give?
Well, they have this wrong. I've been there 4 years, so I've sacrificed a lot. Being on council, I missed out on a lot of work in town. I can't bid on it, and my people work for me can't bid on it. So I've lost a lot of money. Right now, I'm supposed to be at a pastor's conference in Christiansburg. My wife left at 2 o'clock today. I'm here because I committed to this job. And as soon as I get out of here, my clothes are in the vehicle and I'm gone down the road. So, I know what sacrifice is, I've been a servant my whole life. When I got my focus off me and on other people, my problems went away. I have very few problems because I want to see the better for Clifton Forge. I want to see the better for everybody. I want to see the better for the restaurants in town, better for the contractors. I've done well in Clifton Forge, even though I don't have social media. I've made a good living in Clifton Forge. A small town. 90% of my work's in Clifton Forge, not Alleghany County. It's in Clifton Forge, and a lot of it is from, I want to say, people who moved here. I'm missing the word right now. Transplants. A lot of my work is from people who are transplant, and Clifton Forge has a tremendous amount of people who volunteer, and a lot of.
Sorry to cut you off like that, but we do have times. But thank you. You look like you're passionate about that. Mr. Foster, you have a minute to respond.
My wife will kill me for saying this, but as much time as it takes. She has seen me. We're partners in our business. I kind of feel like I'm already serving the public role. Every night I talk to people and I hear their concerns and I hear their thoughts. But I'm on the board here at the theater as well as the chamber board. But in my experience, people who get things done probably have too much to do, but that's why you turn to them, because you know that they're going to get the job done and they're going to find the time. My kids are grown. I do have a grandson in Roanoke that I will continue to spend as much time as I possibly can with, but as much time as it takes, because it's a big job and the people of Clifton Forge are counting on us.
Mr. Irvin, you have a minute.
I spend a lot of time serving, and I count myself as the voice for people who can't make it to the council, won't make it to the council meetings or whatever, or won't get on social media and comment. They see me around town. I think everybody in this town knows my personal phone number. I go to every event. I try to get to every event I can. I haven't missed a ribbon cutting in 3 years. I haven't missed a after hours in 2 or 3 years. Proclamation I haven't missed. And these take time to do. I mean, when most ribbon cuttings are 11:30 in the morning, and I have to take my own personal time at school. I work for the Alleghany County Schools, and I had to take my own personal time to do that. And I'm proud to do it, and I'm happy to do it. And I'm lucky to have a school system that supports me and lets me do it.
All right, thank you. And we're going to turn it over so we can get some audience questions.
Yes, absolutely. And I'd like to congratulate you all for being the first political event to actually be on schedule. This never actually happens. Yeah. So we can look out into the audience now and see if anyone wants to grab one of the mics out there. And have we somebody? Okay, well, come on over.
Hello. Hello?
There you are. Absolutely.
Okay, state your name and who your question is for.
My name is John Moser, and this is for all the coming or staying on town council. I'm wondering, do you all think we can change the charter to where the people get to vote for the mayor instead of town council gets to vote for the mayor?
Well, we'll start with the veteran, Mr. Irvin.
That's a good question. And honestly, I would like to see that. But to change your charter, you have to go through the House of Representatives. And we'd have to vote on it. It'd be up to the citizens. And then it would go to the House or the General Assembly. I'm sorry, not the House. We'd go to the General Assembly, and they would have to okay it. But personally, I would love to see it.
I went up to the courthouse, and they say it has to do with town council. It has nothing to do with the state.
I'm sorry, but that's wrong. It has to go through the General Assembly. Anytime you change a charter, you have to go through the General Assembly.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Wolf, you want to take that on?
Well, I think it works great the way it is, but at the same time, it's the people's choice. You know, you always go back to the people's choice. So if it was a way you could change it and you could let the people elect the mayor, I think it would be great.
Mr. Foster?
I think at the end of the day, it's a question for the town attorney. But with respect to supporting it, absolutely. I think the way that Shorty said it is the best. It should be the people's choice. Whether or not we can put a referendum on the ballot at the next election for the citizens of Clifton Forge to vote on in order to get it to the State House, that may be the interim step. I'm no expert in local government law, but that would seem to, from a governance perspective, make sense as the next step. But again, that's probably better answered by the town attorney. But that would be my view.
I think the sound we hear right now is people flipping through papers to find the exact legal requirements. Have we any other questions out in the audience here? Which is always a challenge to see through the lights. But it looks like we're feeling fairly comfortable with the answers. I'm glad, gentlemen, that you've been able to serve it. I'll double check with our panel. Does anyone here have a thought for them?
Well, first, I'd just like to say thank you to the candidates. I think you guys were upfront and honest and gave this a lot of attention, so we appreciate that. The panel's going to have a discussion about your answers here in just a second.
But you're welcome to flee. So, thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. We try to be more fun. So I guess AJ will let you guide us in the discussion since
All right.
you're in a guiding mode here today.
A couple things. Great question from the audience, and the the candidates are correct. It has to go through the General Assembly. I was in Middleburg. We actually did change ours while I was there. So it is possible to do, but it is also a sweat because they can say no even if you voted to have it sent up there that you want it done. So just know that if that's something you want, you're going to need to push for that, get it on the ballot here, get it to where it can get to the General Assembly, and then they have the power to still say no or yes, given the circumstances that they want to look at. So I think that was great. We'll get any other feedback from the panelists.
The microphone shuffle up here. No, look, I'd like to also just to the three candidates thank them for being here, for being forthright and answering the questions that their constituents provided us as a forum here to ask. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. One of the things, and there was a couple questions, and I don't know whether we got to the answer of the question. And what we were discussing, I think we got I won't say off track, but when we talked about social media, the question I think we were trying to get at is what was the candidate's main objective in running, and then how would they use social media? So whoever gave us that question, I apologize. Hopefully we got to an answer that you were looking for, but all three candidates obviously went in the same direction. So I think it was more the question how we asked it than their interpretation. So gentlemen, thank you again for your effort and for your time.
I was actually really interested in that subject too, Gene. Being obviously a journalist by career and training, transparency is very beloved by me in government, and it was reassuring to hear them all want to be more transparent. And if we had had a little more time to clarify things, it would have been nice to see, because in the new age, it's tough for government to find a good mode to tell people what they're up to, and still, be able to listen, especially in what they did address, especially in this atmosphere with social media, to be able to filter out the trolls and actually hear what your town wants you to do.
We have quite an active social media scene here in our area, and to your point, it can be used effectively. I think AJ's comment about who in the city really controls the messaging, what we would call messaging themes, topics, and keep the conversation going in a constructive manner and not let it get hijacked by individuals who may not have the best interest of the constituents, as their number one issue.
All right, real quick, we'll hit a couple more things if you're. Oh, go ahead. Thank you.
I was just going to say, I think as a citizen who's relatively new in all of this, I really appreciated the transparency factor and that they wanted to talk about it, because in the little bit that I've been doing lately with talking to people that have some issues with some things that are going on in the community, everybody just keeps saying nobody's listening. And that's their biggest problem, is they feel like no one's listening to them. And so it was reassuring to hear that they do want to hear. I do also want to encourage the citizens that if you want to be heard, you have to speak. And that may mean that you have to go to the board meetings, or you have to go to the council meetings. You can't just complain about it on social media or behind the scenes. Yeah, I mean, Clifton said they have people that want to listen, so make sure that you're speaking in the right places and saying what you want to have heard, because you have the right to. You're a citizen, and they need to listen. So.
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of all this, right? You have a town council meeting. If you have an issue, you need to go. If you can't go, I mean, how many organizations are here that are broadcasting those events in real time that you can set in your living room or at your dining room table or wherever and watch what's going on. And you may not be able to speak, but you should be aware of those conversations. There are post-event recordings that you can go back and watch. So yeah, social media is a tool, but I agree with you. There's a lot of ways to get information if you want it.
I wanted to touch just real quick too. Different than most of the people up here, I'm not from here. I am a transplant, as they said, from Loudoun County. And so I think that when they were talking about how to get people to come here, I think once we get people here, keeping them isn't a problem. It's getting them here that's the problem. I came and I thought I can do anything for a year. And then once I came, and you meet the community and the people here and fall in love with the area. So I just encourage us to find a way to get people here, and then we can keep them.
That's what my family found here as well. We came back from overseas. We decided to settle here, and we found a lot of the things we were looking for. We found in this community: the stability, nature, the pace, no traffic. A lot of things. And so there are things that can attract people to our community. But as we were talking about housing, jobs, salary rates, those are all things to consider. How do you hang on to those people, because they're obviously want to be in the workforce here.
You actually conveniently segued to the next thing I was thinking of, which is in the end, it all comes down to money, doesn't it, all the time? I suspect we'll be talking about that all night long, and we have a couple, 3 minutes here left, and I was thinking that I noticed that the other thing that pretty much all of the candidates wanted to talk about was how to create essentially a beneficial spiral. How do you get more people? How do you get more business? How do you get more development? How do you get and then those people want nicer homes. Those people want to get paid more, and then of course you create a tax base that lets you pay more to the police and to the public servants. Looking around at a lot of, not just here in this area, but a lot of communities, that's a tough equation to do.
It actually is very tough, and it's exciting to see that the candidates were all open to all avenues, including, of course, I'm being a former cop. I always want cops paid more. But there's something to be said for attracting top talent, to pay them better, and then to have that consistent message on social media coming out and sticking to that message. I think we have 2 minutes. Does anybody else have anything?
The first question that was asked about the nepotism and the hiring practices, one of the problems with living in a small community is everyone seems to be related to someone else, or everybody is someone else's cousin, and that is something that you run into. And I think all the candidates addressed that. They danced around it a little bit, but they did address it with the fact of trusting the town manager, and maybe having someone from the outside, having a few more people sit in on those interviews and kind of with a little more input in on those decisions. But sometimes we do have to remember that we are kind of kin to everybody around here. So I just wanted to kind of point that out, that we are all related to each other around here, and that's kind of difficult because we do want, a lot of times we want to hire from within. We don't want to hire from outside. We do want to hire from within our own community. So, that's one of those double-edged swords as well.
And I think that kind of plays into the transparency that people are asking for too.
Exactly.
Because if you can explain to me why you chose this person for this board, or why you chose this person for this job, and you tell us why and why they were more qualified than another person, then I think most people will be okay with that. And so we need hopefully to get the councils are doing a good job and continue doing a good job, and get more members that will do the same thing and tell us this is why we're doing it. And I think it's also important to say maybe we messed up here, but we'll do better,
Well, and you have the transparency issue you're discussing, and collaboration's one of those other words that we're talking about. And we had the wall that heals. That was a huge collaborative effort between Covington and the VFW and different organizations are coming together to make those types of things happen. And when the community gets together, when the local government gets together with the organizations within the community, when they all work together, things like that can happen that bring really positive things to our community. And that's what we need to see more of, I think. And I think the whole community can agree on that.
And with that, I'm going to seize control again. So we're going to move on now to Covington City Council. There are 6 candidates who may come up. Whoever has come to join us, which I believe we have a number. We have Lee Rowe, Raymond Hunter, Tom Seibold, Susan Wolf, Susan Crowder, and David Crozier. And as with the last candidates, your seats are conveniently marked so that finding them will be hopefully not a difficult task. And since we mentioned it earlier, and since it is Covington, once again, the wall that heals is down at Jackson Park, and it's there through Sunday, so you have an opportunity to go down and see it. So now, AJ, I turn it back over to you.
All right, well, we thank you. We have 6 candidates and 3 were able to show up. Just the format that we're going to use, just so the candidates know where the questions came from, they're not questions that we made up. There was a poll put out, and the questions were gathered from those polls. These are the questions that the constituents have for the candidates, and so we just want to make sure that you guys know that everything we're asking is something somebody cares about, and it didn't come necessarily from our brains, but somebody else's. The other format that we're going to do is the candidates that aren't here, we will still ask them their question, and then we will have an alternate question for the people that didn't show, that did show, so that we can get some input time from those folks too. So, and we may have to change some of those questions up a little bit. So if you guys are all ready, let's see, make sure who's here. We have Mr. Rowe. So this will be a little bit of a game of tag as we read things and then go to the next question and then hit the alternates for follow-ups and so forth like that. So again, thank you all for being here. It's important that if you're serious about running, that the citizens understand that where you stand. So first question is for Mr. Rowe. Mr. Rowe, I realize that everything in life seems bigger when we're children. However, I have specific memories of how vibrant the downtown used to be. Economic development has been identified as one of the focuses that city leaders should be working on. So, if elected, how do you plan to involve local businesses and community members in your efforts to revitalize downtown, ensuring that the new vision reflects both the historical charm of Covington but also the contemporary needs? You have 90 seconds, sir.
I guess first off, we need to publicize Covington, Virginia like we're doing now. There's still a lot of storefronts that are open. There's some storefronts that people are holding on to that we're not utilizing. Downtown Merchants Association would be a good way to start. We used to have that years ago. There was a regional merchant or a local merchant association that would help everybody, not necessarily downtown. Historic is good. You need to preserve the past, but also with the technology in the future, we have to sometimes look and see how we can generate money to survive. Your buildings can survive. You can preserve your heritage. One thing was the building for the Salvation Army. There's a big troubles in town about it. They preserved it. They built a new building, but they put all over the building a lot of historical relics was in it, pictures and things of that, but Salvation Army needed a new building to do their mission they had. Things like that, you still can be able to preserve your past, but you also have to rejuvenate Covington in some way or we won't survive. And you're bidding businesses to come in downtown as well as anywhere else in Covington. It's got to be a top priority because you can't tax but so much.
Thank you, sir. And it would normally go to Mr. Hunter, but we're going to go with Ms. Crowder, if you got a minute. Yes, ma'am. How do you plan to involve local businesses and community members in your efforts to revitalize the downtown, ensuring that the new vision reflects both the historical charm and the contemporary needs?
Hello. There you go. Hi, everyone. So I am a big believer in community being involved, and I am super supportive of the businesses that we have in town now. And we do have Old Town Covington, which is great, and hopefully will continue to grow so that we can continue to, I guess what I'm trying to say is kind of the same thing as Lee. We do have some places in Old Town Covington which haven't been utilized. So we are needing for those buildings to be occupied with businesses. And I agree that we could get some citizen advisory boards and having district meetings in order to keep the community involved, and a meeting with the local businesses and the business associations in order to make sure that the needs that they have and the needs that maybe our historical society has, that we're all on the same page to continue to grow.
All right, thank you. And we're going to break from the way I have it on here. I'm going to ask Ms. Wolf if you'll take a minute to respond.
Okay. Right now, we have a service downtown instead of a retail downtown. When back in the day, it was retail. But now we've got dentist's office, doctor's office, lawyers, insurance agents, physical therapy. And we need to get with the chamber and get with economic development and see what kind of grants are out there and just see what kind of business we can entice to come in downtown, and also keep the historical factor as well. But our downtown now is basically service rendered instead of retail.
All right, thank you. The next question would go to Mr. Hunter. I don't see Mr. Hunter. So we're going to shoot that question to, and again, sorry, it's going to load up on some of y'all. Mr. Rowe, you get this one too. And so there's been discussions in some circles about reverting to a town. What's your position on this issue, and why do you feel that way?
There's a lot of legalities there. Clifton Forge did it here quite a few years ago. That would need a lot of thinking. Plus, that would have to be voted on by the citizens. But going from city to town, you're going to lose a lot of identity. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm sure you'll lose a lot of government fundings. The county will take over all of your police force. They will take over pretty much everything, and you report to them. When you do that, you're pretty much going to be stuck that for the rest of your time on this earth, because coming back from a town to a city would be meaning that you have turned something around that you had to go back to the town to start with. So would it ever happen? Possibly. Clifton Forge had the railroad. Covington used to have Hercules and many other industries. Times change. Maybe you'll have to adapt to the time to survive, but I don't know. That would be a question I would have to have more legal or input of what. I can't answer that question 100% here because you don't know what you're losing going from city to town, but I 100% know that you'll lose a lot.
Thank you. Ms. Wolf, you have 1 minute.
I'm not for reverting back to a town status. I feel like you'll pay taxes in the county, you'll pay taxes in the town. That's double taxes. And it just feels like if you revert from being a city back to a town, you've taken one giant step backward in time. And I'm just not for it whatsoever. I don't find anything good about it.
And Ms. Crowder.
Thank you. So, like Susie over there, I'm totally against us going back to a town. I know that we had been a town like many, many, many years ago and became a city again, and I'd like to see it stay that way. Where I used to live was on the eastern shore of Virginia, and it is all towns, basically. And so there was 2 counties and all towns up and down, and living in a town, we were constantly trying to make sure that there was enough revenue in order to have all the essential needs that we needed in the town, and we couldn't always have things that we necessarily needed with having to asking the county about money for it, because the money was always being used in other areas. So our town was basically taking care of itself, its trash, its police force, its fire department and rescue, and working primarily in Clifton Forge. Actually
That's all right. We thank you for what you did say. I want to do one little quick follow-up question. And the reason the question was asked is there is an interest in some of the constituency to look at it. So we would hope that you would commit to doing the research, because some of what was said is not factual. You don't lose your control of your police force. Code of Virginia says if you have a police force, it is the primary law enforcement agency. So the sheriff would still have jurisdiction in the town, but the police department would be the primary law enforcement agency. So you wouldn't lose any of that. You would lose some other monies, but I believe it's really worth looking into just to see if somebody asks that question, you have answers that are factual answers and not, and again, this is a pop-up question where you didn't have time to research it, but I think some of the constituency would like to see you research that. So if you get elected, take the time to look into, see what the benefits that are actually the benefits and what are actually the downfalls. So the next question is for Mr. Seibold, but he is not here. Is it Seibold or Seibold? Okay, Mr. Seibold, and he's not here. And this is a long bring to the question, but these are the concerns that were on the poll, and then we'll shoot a question to Ms. Wolf. That's a little bit different. Despite Mr. Seibold's claim that over half the stories told on 410 Main were from the imagination, over the past year, significant concerns have emerged regarding the city's partnership with 410 on Main Street Corporation. Notably, there have been concerns related to construction and renovations that were alleged to have been done without proper permits. Additionally, under his administration, there appears to have been safety regulations that were ignored, allowing hundreds of children and people to attend events in a building that was classified as a serious fire hazard. Consequently, the Commonwealth's fire marshal ordered an immediate shutdown of the building and the department that issued permits. And on top of that, there also appears to be some water treatment plant issues that occurred that actually have resulted in 3 state violations, 13 violations from the EPA's serious violation list. So the question that would have been asked for him is, how do you reconcile the previous statements and ensure the voters that you are truly prioritizing safety? The alternate question, and if you guys see the mayor, please ask him that question. The alternate question would go to Ms. Wolf, and it's not quite as long. This past spring, the water treatment plant incurred 3 violations that were state and 13 federal violations from the EPA's serious violators list. What does that say to you about the leadership of the town?
Well, it says they're not doing their job because you have to have certain credentials in order to be in that water plant. I don't know what schedule that you have to be, but I know that certain facilities mean that you have to have a certain level of qualification for water treatment license. And apparently that wasn't done, and therefore we had all those violations because we did not follow state and federal protocol on it. And it seems like if they knew this, then they should have been pushing or prompting the people that worked in the water plant to go to school and upgrade their water license for that facility, so they wouldn't be in the mess that they're in now with all these fines and whatnot.
Thank you. All right, so Ms. Wolf, Ms. Crowder, you have a minute, please.
So my understanding of the situation is that the basic trouble that we were getting into was not filing our paperwork on time, but that our water levels, everything seemed to be fine. So it seems to me this might be a better situation that we should be talking to our city manager about, to find out if we got the first violations, why they continued, instead of making sure the people who were working and supposed to be doing their job were qualified to do what they were supposed to do and understood their job well. Maybe they needed a little bit more training, but they needed to make sure that the people that were in the position to be getting the reports in on time were doing their job.
Mr. Rowe.
I believe but what I have asked, the water in Covington, I guess, should be put out there. There's always been fine. There's never been any trouble with the water. It's more of people need to be trained to be doing the testing and also paperwork trails, which also can lead to other things if people aren't doing them. To be qualified as a treatment plant operator, you have to do a lot of schooling. Also in there, I think there was some deaths that come to some people that was in the plant. There was these top jobs that done the supervision of it. And maybe they dropped the ball on getting people to be trained. Maybe there's one thing to make sure we have people sent to be trained and have people on backups at more than one operator. And maybe incentives to bring people in here to train within, but if it all needed to be, we'll have to train without. But that all comes down to money also.
All right, thank you, sir. I guess just on this, I think what we're looking at is, if each of you are elected, are you committed to looking into this and making sure that it doesn't continue to incur? Yes or no?
Yes.
Next question is for Ms. Wolf. I know it's without people, you bounce around a lot. I apologize. When considering your background in parks and recreation, which two projects do you think need the most attention and why? Also, how does your experience in this area translate to handling other projects like infrastructure?
Okay, first of all, my tenure with Parks and Recreation was more or less being the underpaid babysitter for the city of Covington. I oversaw football games, and I made sure that you had the right personnel there to do the ball game. Somebody to do the door, to do the chains. The rec department itself hired the clock, and that was Glinski. And the basketball, I saw that somebody did the door, somebody did the book, somebody did the clock, and if they didn't show up, then I did that, along with making sure that these kids didn't run around crazy and be fighting and carrying on, or bring basketballs into the gym during a basketball game. And if you did, that was my ball until you left, because you didn't want it rolling out there while the children were playing basketball. But I did do one project while I was in Parks and Rec. They had a project for the downtown and business vitalization project. And I went around and to every business in Covington and give them the flyer from where the city would match 50% of what they put into their building and storefront to revitalize it. And so I was part of that project when they started that back in 99 or 2000.
And real quick, just to get the question that we were looking for, do you think that experience translates into you being able to handle projects like infrastructure and bigger projects?
Yes, because I was a maintenance supervisor up at Jerry's Run for 17 years, and I watched how the state spent the money. I also helped the state spend some money, and I got bids for things that got fixed up there and whatnot. So, yes, I do think that I'm qualified.
All right, thank you very much. Crowder, sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You got 1 minute. Trying to make sense of my notes here. I apologize.
I guess what I would like to see done, I have no experience really in Parks and Recreation, but I would like to make sure that we have more activities for our children and our seniors. I know that those parts of Parks and Recreation are super important, and I want them to be not just, I want the things for the children to not just be sports related, maybe like after school programs where you can do clubs as in gardening or pottery or art or STEM projects, and cooking classes, tutoring classes, so the kids have more things to do in our area, and also more things for our seniors to do. We do have a nice senior citizen, but it would be nice if we could have a few more activities, dancing classes, gardening classes, things for them as well, and maybe even combine the two groups together, the seniors and the kids together, so that the kids can have the experience of the seniors in order to help them with projects.
Mr. Rowe.
Could you repeat the question?
Just really looking to see how your experience in life translates to being able to tackle some of the harder projects like infrastructure and so forth like that.
Well, I've worked at the mill for 35 years, maintenance pretty much all of it. I've been doing some contractor work with helping on people. I did a lot of projects in the area with keeping up with some of the building codes and articles of that nature. Also, I follow a lot of the sports. I try to go to the council meetings to keep up to date on the ins and outs of the infrastructure of what legally you can do, can't do. Also, I've been in the area. I have 2 businesses that I tried to successfully run. I've never had any problems with any of the state organizations that you have to be licensed through. So I've tried to run them, the best I can, trying to study and learn different laws on restaurants and somewhat on remodeling other places. So my history gives a little bit on knowledge of infrastructure and things like that.
All right, thank you, sir. Next question is from Ms. Crowder. When discussing the possibility of raising taxes, you stated that it should only be a last resort after all options have been explored and the budget has been carefully evaluated to cut any unnecessarily expenses. That's a powerful statement. Have you conducted a thorough review of the budget to identify any areas of waste? If so, which specific items or expenses do you consider to be excessive or unnecessary? You have 90 seconds.
So I have been reviewing the budget for the last couple weeks, but it's the general budget, and it compares year to year to year as to how much we have delegated to certain areas. And it appears that by looking at the budget, that the majority of the time that the budget is increasing is when it's kind of like a cost of living area of it. So I kind of understand that. There's a few questions in there as far as like leasing equipment and vehicles. I'm not so sure why we're leasing vehicles, but I feel in order to be able to cut the waste that is needed to be cut, that we'll probably have to look at department spending, department budgets, in order to check out everything that they are spending money on and see what things are being not properly spent, had a word in my head. Anyway, I just want to make sure that we're not wasting any money on frivolous things. In the last year, we have bought multiple police cars, and we have bought multiple public work vehicles, and I don't know if there was a reason why we were buying so many vehicles at one time, or if it was something that we could put off some things for another year and repair. So I'm trying to look into things, but I think in order for me to know where we can actually cut waste, I'm going to have more information from the departments themselves.
All right, Mr. Rowe, you have a minute, please.
Yeah, the budget we had, we looked over it. We actually only had one copy, so one of the ladies here got one, and then we kind of shared it. One day one person would have it, and the next day they'd let the other one take it. And so with the budget we had, it didn't go a line item per se. You had to go back and look up numbers. So, and giving BB a little credit, he did say anytime we needed to come down there, but with the only daylight hours, I'm sure he would have let us if we needed to come down another time. He would have met with us to explain a little better, which if elected, we will sit down and have hours of conversation with him to make sure we know exactly what we're doing. We are spending our money, the city's money, so it's our due diligence to make sure we know what we're doing. As far as frivolous spending, we didn't see anything directly. It comes out overall, but there's going to be a lot of expenses in there that we don't know directly, like the tanks they had to spend. We don't know that directly in the budget.
And Ms. Wolf.
Okay, I went up and I spent like half of the afternoon with BB and half the morning with BB going over this budget thing. And we've got 9 lines of areas where we spend money. And a lot of expenditures are that we share with the county, such as the jail, the sheriff's salary, the deputy's salaries, and that takes a good chunk of it, of the budget. And then, you have your treasurer and the departments, their salaries and whatnot. That goes all in there. But nothing jumped out at me to where we were spending money frivolously that we didn't need to spend.
Thank you. And just so you know, any of the citizens as well as you guys, if you want a copy of the budget, all you have to do is ask for it. Freedom of Information Act, they have to give it to you. They can't tell you have to come up there and read it. They have to give it to you. So if you want a copy of any of the budgets, please make sure you ask that. Little statement about budgets. 35 years in working with local governments, and always the overwhelming majority of the budget is exactly what you said. It is cost of living and it is salary based. You'd be surprised how little of a budget actually goes to the equipment and stuff that you actually buy. It's mostly your people. Next question would be for Mr. Crozier, who is not here, but we'll read his question. If you see him, please ask him. And then we'll give the alternate question to Ms. Crowder. Mr. Crozier, you are the chairman of the Alleghany Covenant Department of Social Services, and by virtue of your position on the City Council, given the numerous complaints over the past year from the former staff and constituents about the department's shortcomings, the poor performance metrics from the Virginia State Department of Social Services, and the current $5 million lawsuit for unlawful termination and retaliation over the past year, public concern about your leadership has grown significantly. So the question for him would be, how do you justify your continued leadership in both the city and DSS given the serious scrutiny? What concrete steps would you take to ensure that the department meets its responsibilities to the community and prevents further neglect, misconduct, and/or even conflict of interest with his position on council? Now, your question's not as hard. Ms. Crowder, what is your perspective on the appropriate course of action concerning Mr. Crozier and his positions considering the pending lawsuit? Do you believe he should remain in his roles, or do you think he should resign from one or both?
Well, my personal opinion is that it's totally been a conflict of interest for David Crozier to be not a board member, but an officer on the board for DSS, since the Covington City Council does give money to them. I don't have a problem with them being on the board to watch over spending, but being an officer I feel is a conflict of interest. And I have been going to Covington City Council meetings for a little over 2.5 years, and I've seen them handle situations differently. When the treasurer had an issue where basically she was in trouble, they took her, wouldn't let her work until after the court date. But then I saw where Mr. Dressler had court cases against him and they let him work, and now there's court cases coming against Mr. Crozier and they're letting him work. So I feel that we need to have a plan in action being on council as to how we're going to handle the situations and handle everyone equally the exact same way, because it's only fair as citizens, and we're looking from the outside looking in. It seems to be unjust if you're not treating everyone the same.
Ms. Wolf.
Well, I feel like it's conflict of interest, period, for you to be on one of these boards and be on council, because you're already a part of the decision making for the city. And then if you're on some of these boards, then I just feel like it's conflict of interest, because and he's went and got himself in a pile of trouble being on this board for the Department of Social Services. And I just feel like it's conflict of interest to be on anything that is involved with city council. It's just, I just think it's wrong. I don't think you should be involved.
And Mr. Rowe.
Getting in personal is always a bad step. Some of these boards we have to have advisors on. We give money to them, and we have to have somebody there to overlook as an advisory step. As being a president or something on these boards, that's possibly that could be a conflict of interest, but we do need people there to make sure the money is being spent appropriately. And through time, there's been a lot of representatives that have been on boards as advisory or as members. If you have major conflicts like some people have, sometimes they may need to take a leave of absence. And then if there is legal matters that gets taken, were convicted or found guilty of some things, then yes, automatically you would be suspended, taken off the board. But sometimes we need to maybe police ourselves and say, hey, we need to take back, and till this is over with, I'll just take a leave of absence and make sure the committee stays functioning well.
Thank you, sir. And those conclude the actual questions that we have. I don't have a follow-up there. We're going to get the audience.
So we get to move out into the audience now. If anyone has a question, they have a microphone out there for you. Just raise your hand, and we have someone in the far back. If we could get that to her.
State your name and what your question is.
Thank you all for putting this on for us tonight. I appreciate these three folks stepping forward and trying to help our city. I want to go back to 1744 when President George Washington built a fort in Covington. It is the oldest locality in our area, 1744. Second, I want to thank the ladies for standing up and presenting that we need to stay as a city. I want to remind you all that we voted on that 3 times, and 3 times the city wants to be a city. We need to be independent. We've been independent for a long time. I appreciate you all standing strong, ladies. I appreciate Mr. Rowe as well pointing out things that need to be changed. One thing that I would like to see changed is the auditors. When I worked, and I worked there 40 years for the city of Covington, so I know what I'm speaking of. Auditors used to be changed. We had 3 or 4 different groups. And so my question is, would you look and see about changing auditors for the city every 4 or 5 years?
Well, let's start with Ms. Crowder. Since you're, you can bring in some new ideas with your challenge.
I'll be honest, I didn't know that they didn't use the same people. I'm not really sure who is the auditing company that comes there and does it, but I'm willing to look into anything and any concerns that any citizen has, because the citizens to me are the people who are in charge of our government. They're the people who pay the salaries for the people in our government, and I feel like the citizens and city council need to work together in order to make sure that we are all moving forward in a positive direction. And I see Ms. Eunice may have something else she wants to ask me.
I was just going to say, right now, currently we have Farmer Robinson Cox, and we've had him for many years. But before that, we had Mr. White, and I think they were from Stan. And before that, we had Mr. Fireball, who had his office in Roanoke. So it's something that is put out to bid, and then you look at, you put questions to them, of course. And I'm sure that you all will find a very capable group. Even if you cannot change the firm, you ought to be able to change the staff members that are coming so that they don't get in routine and not looking at other questions that might arise that need to be looked at.
So, Ms. Wolf, I guess you'd had to deal with a few audits yourself over time.
Well, Eunice, I'll be more than, if I'm elected, I'll be more than happy to look into it and see what we can do to change it. But I guess it all has to be agreed on between all the council, but I'm willing.
Mr. Rowe.
First thing, I'm not for changing the city. I must have misworded there, so I'm with the other 2 ladies here of us keeping a city. I just wanted to make that clear after what she misunderstood, or I said it wrong. But as far as the other, if it's put out for bid, then it should be, multiple people checking it, because like you said, you don't want to get in complacent and then have something wrong, or somebody thinks this is the same way it always been. But yeah, I'm for making sure we have the right people there.
So we have about a minute if anyone else has a question. Yes, down about halfway down there. So we'll be quick, hopefully, in our answers. Maybe not a complicated question.
I know I'm not a resident of Covington, but I'm a member of Clifton Forge. But from what a common theme across all of Alleghany County, just like the school systems, money. So my thought is, at one time I heard that Covington, Clifton Forge, and Alleghany was trying to be like Jackson City or something. Why can't we do that and then not have all the monies put in one pot? Because Covington's very blessed to have the paper mill where they get all that money from the paper mill, and it doesn't get spread evenly against the county or the
Mr.
other
Rowe,
towns.
You seem uniquely placed to answer that.
The mill is in somewhat the county, so they do get some tax money off of it. Now, how it's divided up, I don't know right offhand. It does on the land value and the machinery tax and things like that. That's not something that I would have, right off the hand. But what I was thinking about earlier is what you're saying, not necessarily maybe of joining the governments together, but all the businesses we have here, we're bound to be able to get, we have so many events we're having now that we could get together and have a lot of our locals come together where we can start having vendors or people that would be able to set up and have a more communication of events going on to where everybody can be involved in them. Covington, Iron Gate, Clifton, wherever it's at, whether it be in your alls, y'all have 2 or 3, maybe 4 big events a year where they would come down. Covington, the same thing, where they have them downtown or at the Jackson River Complex. They should be able to put out networks of your vendors or your merchants and let them know what's going on and if they would want to be involved in it and have some kind of a network.
Ms. Wolf?
Well, I've heard that the production part of the paper mill is done in the county because part of the paper mill is in the county, part of it's in the city, and that it's cheaper to produce in the county, so that's why the production is done in the county instead of in the city, and the taxes on the equipment is cheaper there. But I guess I agree with Lee. I mean, you know, collaborate with the others and see what we can do to get together to have more money in the area.
Ms. Crowder?
So I'm completely with Lee as well, because I do know that part of the paper mill is in the county and part is in the city, but what percentage of each, I'm not sure. And who gets what amount of money, I'm not sure as well. But I kind of feel the same way that both of them are feeling. I feel like there are different types of events that we can get together with and organizations, even with economic development. We can get more participation and with all of our areas, and maybe get a marketing committee even together, so we can, with all of our, with Iron Gate, Clifton Forge, the Alleghany Highlands, and Covington, we should be able to afford a good marketing company so that it can basically let everyone know in multiple areas all the great things that we have here, and maybe actually make tourist attractions better, because we can talk about things that are going on in Clifton Forge with the Art Council and things that are going on in Covington with different events that we have going on, and things that are going on in the Alleghany Highlands with all of the activities in nature especially, and we can make like little packages to make it so that we seem like a team in our area, even if we keep our government separate.
Well, on that lovely note of agreement amongst the three of cooperation, we'll move to our panel discussion for a few minutes, and let you all continue on with your lives and your campaigns. Thank you.
Again, we want to thank each candidate. It's important to show that they cared enough to be here, and that says a lot to us, so we appreciate you and your time. And as they make their way down, we'll kind of do a informal discussion about some of the things. You know, I like the plan where you look at hold the city manager and the city leadership accountable for some of the issues that they are, and building those succession plans. And I think that was a very important thing to talk about. Every city must have a succession plan. We were just talking about regional cooperation, and I'm going to throw Loudoun County under the bus here because I spent the last 11 years as the chief of police in Middleburg, and Loudoun County has a very good working relationship with all the towns, and we have we used to, I don't go there anymore, but they have a really good regional economic development plan. So as the candidates maybe could investigate other localities and what they do where they make it regional. I know Loudoun County's works really well. Anybody have any thoughts?
One of the common threads I noticed with this last discussion, the Alleghany Highlands Economic Development, we do have a regional partnership. And in the first question that went to Mr. Rowe, publicize and market the retail merchants. You know, that's something that board could do for Covington and Clifton Forge and the entire region. And it sort of the last question ended up on that same note, as far as, you know, how could we, you know, with Mr. Moser's question, you know, how can we share the wealth? How can we spread things out a little bit? That's another way. And again, it comes back to that collaboration factor that we're talking about. So there are joint resources that we have in place, and, you know, those are the things that we need to work through. And perhaps the folks that were up here on the stage, they're ready to get together and, you know, work with those elements and make those things happen.
You might also consider the Chamber of Commerce. In my opinion, it seems to be a very energized organization and holds, you know, almost weekly events. Does a good job in advertising new businesses, ribbon cuttings. So if they're listening, you know, I would just send out you know, my kind of regards to what they do as a new business owner, somebody who just joined in the last few months. I've been very pleased with it. So to your point, yeah, I'd say for the candidates, that's another resource to reach out to, meet with, discuss what they're doing already, and then, you know, are there other areas we could, you know, we could look at. You know, myself, I've met with the Economic Development Commission in the last couple weeks. We talked about the pad site and how it was a joint effort to develop in the county, to develop a product that they could then market, you know, to the state to try to attract businesses. So that's another thing I would ask them to, you know, kind of dig into a little bit deeper. I'll pass this back if someone else has another comment.
I was just gonna, I don't have anything to say on those topics, but when we were talking about the water treatment plant, I think it does kind of fall back into things that we've already talked about before, and it's money and getting people here. I do think that it's really important that we have a plan of, you know, we only have one person that's qualified, make sure we're training the next person. But obviously some of these positions take a lot of training, and so we should have some idea of how we get trained people here and how we compensate them, because if I'm going to go through the education it takes, and I can get paid a lot more somewhere else.
Let's hold that, you know, that thought about licensing and certifications, and also the spirit of collaboration amongst the municipalities here, the county, Clifton, Covington, and even Iron Gate. If the city of Covington does not have a license, an individual that does not have a certain certification, does Clifton Forge? Why, if we're going to do some of these other activities together, why could we, you know, talk to another minister, you know, the mayor sitting right here, you know, can your certified whatever, building code enforcer, water treatment plant operator, whatever that is, can he help us to meet our you know, our requirements? I don't know whether that was done, and we're not going to get that answer because the people that know that answer didn't come tonight, and that's disappointing. So I think it would have been, you know, maybe an opportunity to address ways to work together in the future. Not so much get into the details of why it happened, but how are we going to improve?
Well, I was once told by a nurse in the emergency room that you never say the word quiet because it jinxes the place. And I never should have said we were on time, because now we're 4 minutes behind.
Yeah, so we're going to start moving ahead, and we just, again, want to thank the people that did come. That's such an important thing, so thank you.
So if we could bring up the school board candidates, we have 3 places for them here. And they are welcome to come to their spots. Again, conveniently located, Robert Umstead, Jay Woodson, and Jacob Wright, the incumbent. If y'all could join us, who are here. As they make their way. We're not that intimidating, I hope. Or maybe I do hope we're intimidating. I don't know. That's perhaps the point of the debate. We've got your name tags here.
Again, we'd like to welcome the candidates that showed up. We do appreciate it. It is an important part of the electoral process is to be able to ask the candidates. We'll start with the same thing I've told every candidate so far. We did not come up with these questions. These questions were brought up by the public, and they were important to the public and their issues that they currently are considering when they cast their vote. First question, Mr. Umstead. School busing is the issue, and there appears to be a lack of drivers and/or coordination that results in long ride times for many students. Often this requires students to board very early and arrive home just as late. Please tell us what you believe are the top 2 approaches in your mind that would help fix that problem.
Can you hear me? Do I need this? All right. To me, it's simple. We have to have qualified bus drivers that'll drive the buses. From what I hear from bus drivers, I think the most thankless job in the school system is being a bus driver. They're on a bus by themselves with 20 or 30 kids behind them with no help. I think we have to train bus drivers, and I think we have to come up with a plan, because it's my understanding that if you're a 40-year bus driver and a first-year bus driver, you're paid the same salary. I think after 40 years, I'd get discouraged if the person that's been here for 2 weeks makes the same salary that I do. I think we have to come up with a plan to address the payment scales. I think we have to advertise it in the community to get people to drive buses. When I was in school a million years ago, they had students driving buses. I know the students in our school system. I don't want them driving buses. But I think it's an issue that a lot of places have. After the pandemic, things seem to have fallen apart, and we've become a society that is not very aggressive toward getting work done. Is that a fair way to put it? I think we need bus drivers. We need kids to get to school. Our gripe is kids aren't in school, they're not doing well, they can't get to school because of bus route changes.
Yep, thank you, sir. Yep. And Mr. Woodson.
Yeah, first I want to, is this on, I guess? How about now? Thank you all for being here. I appreciate this event. I think it's always good to hear from the candidates themselves and asking or answering questions that the citizens have. But I think the one thing that we don't do that we need to do is involve the drivers in the plan. I think no one knows how to do the job better than the folks doing the job, in my opinion. And so more involvement by the drivers to participate in the plan. I think also support from the administration around discipline, because it is difficult for a driver to drive and keep control of the cargo, let's say. So those are the 2 actions that I would focus on.
Thank you. And if Mr. Wright was here, I'm sorry, if Mr. Wright was here, I was going to ask him the question that you brought up, which was, what's the pay scale? And if that's the pay scale, you're correct, it needs fixed. And speaking of question number 2, it would go to Mr. Wright. But we will give that to you again. I'm sorry, you get 2 back to back. Since the consolidation, the tradition of sporting events seems to have changed. Traditionally, sporting events were held at our schools, which can be argued builds school spirit. However, now some games are being played at Casey Field and or the sports complex. Where do you stand on this and why? And then lastly, if elected, will you support or oppose continuation of this practice? You have 90 seconds.
Well, if elected, I support, the practice has to take place, as far as I'm concerned, because the athletic fields they're playing on now other than football games that Alleghany would play in Covington, has been where they're at now. They've been doing for a while. They've been doing for quite a while. I think you play at the facilities that protect the students the best, that are the best facilities for our athletes to participate on. The football field is fine, the baseball field is fine. They play basketball games and volleyball at Alleghany. I think cross country's ran at the complex. These are things that have been going on for quite a while, I think. The thing is the athletes. The comments made, well, our athletes get on a bus and play 10 away games. No, they don't. They get on a bus to go to Covington to play 5 home games, then they get on a bus to go 5 other places. If you were an Alleghany coach, as I was, or an athlete, we travel every time we go anywhere or do anything. We're traveling all over Virginia. So that's not to me, that's not an issue. The quality of the facilities since consolidation, in my opinion, has improved immensely. We do not have a rubberized gym floor. We have a wooden gym floor, and the kids love it. I love it. For the 40 years I taught here, I'm glad. I wish it was there 40 years ago. Everything is better athletic-wise, in my opinion anyway. So I don't think we have to change anything.
And your response, sir, Mr. Woods.
Yes, sir. I agree with Mr. Umstead. I think we should utilize the facilities that are best. We are a consolidated system. It would not make any sense not to use the best fields and or gymnasium that we have access to, just like schools, in my opinion. I think that's another topic, but I agree with Mr. Umstead. I think we should utilize the best facilities we have possible for the kids.
And I really appreciate that information, because gathered from the internet poll that we took, I don't think a lot of people know the reasoning behind it, and sometimes communicating that helps with it. So, yeah. And I think that's something we hope that if elected, you guys will make an opportunity to fix. Mr. Woodson. No. We're going to bounce it around a little bit. Mr. Woodson, school safety is a huge concern. In fact, we have experienced threats of violence to our schools in the past, including a recent shelter in place. What do you propose that we do to address this threat? And additionally, what impact, if any, do you believe the shelter in place actually has on our students?
Great question. I think I was very happy to see the hiring of Mr. Fisher. I think he has a great deal of experience in our system already, and I think a lot of the kids look up to him. I know mine do to this day. My son's 20 and my daughter's a freshman at Alleghany, and they both adore Mr. Fisher and admire him. So I think that's a good start. I think, you know, when situations like this occur, I always like to look towards ourselves, right? What can we do to change the situation? And I think it's got to start with more focus on character building. I think a lot of times some of these threats are simply a kid wanting to get out of class earlier, or a kid screaming for attention for a reason. That's of course not always the case, and thank God we haven't had any tremendously terrible situations happen in our locality. But I think we got to start at a young age, focus on character, make sure the kids understand that if there is a problem or a situation, that communication takes place with the right people. Thank God we have resource officers in our schools. Both localities have done a really good job of supporting that, and I think we are blessed in that arena. But again, I think we need more character focus with our students.
All right, thank you. And give me a second just to get my notes in place. Yeah, it goes back to Mr. Umstead. I'm just trying not to beat you up with too many questions.
He likes to talk.
hang on, go ahead.
I agree with everything that Jay said. I think the best thing we've done since the consolidation is hiring Chris Fisher to oversee this program, and I really believe that because of the respect the kids have for him, things will change. The environment might even change. The resource officers in the building, I know most of them, absolutely stand-up people, males and females. Kids respect them. I just want to be honest as I can. If something bad happens, let's tell the community about it. Let's don't make a big deal out of it and hide it. Let's just tell them. And then we can fix it. We can't fix what we don't know exists. And that's what the people of the community are telling me. I'll help you, but I don't know what to do because no one's telling me what's going on.
All right, thank you. And I'll just do a real quick follow-up on Chris Fisher. Not only is he regionally respected here locally, he's respected further throughout the state. I know Chris personally, and I called him last night, actually, when I saw that he had been named, and I think that was a really good move in the right direction for your school system. He has. All right, Mr. Umstead, it looks like you get the next question again. It's been suggested that you intend to run for this position until you're elected. Such a statement can be interpreted various ways. Some may think it implies that only you can fix the issues, while others might see it as a reflection of your ego, and still others may see it as a continuation of your life of service. So which is it? And then how will you actively involve the community in your efforts to address the issues while ensuring your actions are perceived as collective rather than self-serving?
Well, if my wife was answering this question, she said it'd be my ego. I'm 78. I'll be 78 this month. I have worked with and been involved in public education for 71 years. Started school when I was 6. I have 2 master's degrees and a PhD. I love working with kids, and I love the community. I have a ton of community support, so if I made a comment that I'm not going to give up if I don't win, so when I was in college, if I lost my first race, I'd quit? No, that was never my attitude. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying. I don't hold grudges. I don't get mad at people. My concern is, you can ask anybody that knows me, the bottom line is the kids. I want the kids to have what's right. I want the teachers to have what they need to teach the kids. I want the bus drivers to be safe so they can drive them home. I talk to people all the time. I mean, I'm on a vendetta with my wife right now. I'm talking to everybody that's homeschooling their kids right now to find out why they're not putting them in Alleghany schools. And I've talked to over 100 people. The answers are interesting. I'll share that another time.
And do you have anything to rebut with that, sir?
Not at all. I think I've got to know Mr. Umstead from him coaching my son in track and my daughter in indoor track, and I don't think it's ego. I think he has a vested interest in our kids.
It's good to know, sir. Good to know. All right, next question will be for Mr. Wright, who's not here, and this is a long prelude, and again, a long question, but it's what the public wants to know. So if you see him, please ask him, and then we'll shoot the next question to Mr. Wood. It would be, Mr. Wright, the Virginia Department of Education has a code of ethics. It does not specifically address the behaviors of its members while off duty. However, it refers to words like earn the respect, trust, honesty, and integrity. The question that would be asked to him based on what the viewers wanted to know is, do you believe it is important for educators and leaders to display ethical behavior in all areas of our life? And that would be in light of his public arrest record and his recent allegations. And then the question would be, do you believe that your history aligns with the standards as discussed? And again, that was a question that, or several questions that people wanted to know, led to that, so that's what that was in there for. Mr. Woods, your question would be, do you believe it is important for educators and leaders to display ethical behavior in all areas of their life?
Well, one of the big things I've mentioned earlier is a focus on character. You know, there used to be a program, you know, previously served on Covington City School Board. We used to have a program, and the county did as well, probably statewide program, but it was character counts. We're just kind of reinitiating that in the system now. I think there was a lot more emphasis on that years ago. And character's got to start with the board and the administration, and I think it really needs to be throughout the entire system. It's second on my priority list that I have posted on my website is the character of not only the administration, the teachers, and the kids, but also the board. So it's a huge focus for me.
Mr. Umstead?
Good question. I believe that my position as a teacher for those many years, I'm a role model. I don't ask anything of myself I wouldn't ask of anybody else. I treat everybody the same and equal. I expect the people to do that. In the 40 years I taught at Alleghany, I never wrote up a student. I learned how to deal with them. And it's amazing that people I probably should have written up started to respect me a little bit and didn't become a behavior problem. I think as a role model, you set down the standards you live by. And I'm going to go religion for a moment. Every time my cross country or my track team, indoor and outdoor, went any place, we'd stop and eat. My teams would not eat until I said a blessing for them. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. I really don't know. But I think role models are important, because when I turn on the TV, I see a lot of role models I wouldn't want my kids or my grandkids to follow. My job as a teacher, other than educating, is to teach people how to live and live by the example I set.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wood, you can add anything to that if you like. Woodson, sorry.
No, that's okay. No worries. No, I don't have anything to add, and I don't think praying for your team or with your team is a bad thing. I think it's important and something we ought to allow more openly in our school system. I think it'd solve a lot of problems.
And you know, I think we're excited to see that people running care about being a role model for our youth, because that's important. Mr. Woodson, you get the next question. Some in the community believe that this last-minute attempt to get back on the board for a third term as a write-in is an attempt to stay in a position of power, while others believe it is an attempt to continue to improve the system. So tell the audience why you're running and what notable achievements from your earlier terms that you would like to showcase.
Well, I can assure you it's not to stay in power. I don't necessarily see it as that kind of role. I think it's a moving forward, making better type of role. There's a lot of work that goes into being a school board member. If you do it correctly, there's a lot of preparation, a lot of reading, a lot of time. I have a vested interest in the school system, obviously. I have a daughter that's still in the school system. I want to see the system succeed. I have supported consolidation every time it came on the ballot, so I'm thrilled that we're where we are. I think now's the time that we need to really roll up our sleeves and get in there and make sure that the system thrives, not just survives. And I think that's going to take a tremendous amount of work in order to make that happen. We're going to have to think outside of the box, because funding's just not falling from the trees these days, right? So, it certainly is not, I'm not running to have a position of power. It wasn't a last minute type of decision. I actually talked to the registrar in March. Unfortunately, it was a miscommunication around the number of signatures I needed, so I put a lot of thought into running, and I actually spent some time with Ms. Fitzpatrick around that. She informed me she was not going to run because I'm a big fan of Ms. Fitzpatrick, and so that's why I'm here. I do have a vested interest. I have a strong desire to make the system thrive, and I have I'm driven to see that happen.
Thank you, sir. And of course, Mr. Umstead? Just basically, why are you running, sir? Yes, sir. It could be either, but I suspect you know more about why you're running.
Well, I think I have a lot to offer. I probably I'm going to go to Jay first. I've known Jay for quite a while. I can't imagine him doing for anything other than what's for the best interest of the kids. The same reason I'm running. I love to coach. I gave up coaching. I gave up being on town council so I could do this. I want to offer assistance to the school board. I want to open the school board's eyes to things sometimes the people that are telling them what's going on, they're not misleading them, they're just not telling them. Education is simple to me. Somebody teaches, somebody learns, they take a test, if they pass it, they move on. We don't have to make it difficult. If I had an hour, I could explain something to you I think is interesting. But I won't do that because then he'll ring that bell more than I want him to. Education is simple to me. I have 6 kids that all did extremely well. They're doing wonderful things now, and it was because of Alleghany County's education. Alleghany County is not the same school system that I came to here in '83. It has changed drastically. I would like to push to get it back in those same tracks that it was in before.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Woodson, of course, you have an opportunity to say anything else you'd like to say.
No, sir, I'm good.
All right,
Thank you.
You came in '83. That meant that you spent 2 years in the school while I was there. Alleghany, yes, sir. 85. Well, you wouldn't tell by my handwriting.
So at the risk of encouraging Mr. Umstead, we're actually ahead of schedule now. But we're at the audience question moment for these candidates, if anyone has a question. Yes, about halfway down on the left there, if we can get the microphone.
I have a 2-part question. One is, you were talking about ethics and stuff like that. Do you think that the school board should do background checks on the candidates or who's going to be on the school board with that? Second part is, do you think it's appropriate for members of the school or school board to, if they don't like a parent who's involved in the school, to send the police to their house to do a well visit to try to get them in trouble, and when it backfires, then ban them from the school system?
Well, I suspect there's a story behind that, but at least with background checks, let's move to Mr. Woodson.
You know, I'm fine with someone doing a background check on me if they wish. I think, obviously, each individual has to answer that question for themselves. I don't think there's any written code that requires such a check to serve. As far as the situation you mentioned about the wellness check, I don't even know where to begin to answer that type of question because that was obviously not enough information there.
And I have a problem. I want to see, like Bob Umstead, who knows special ed, to do more for these autistic kids in Alleghany County who was nonverbal, and he's very verbal now. They basically shunned Mindy Garzinski from the county. And she is one hell of a woman that does great things for autistic and special needs children that the county will not, in their own backyard, right there in Covington, she has her own center, has shunned. And now they want to shut me down, but I knew Henry Millwood in Richmond. So they don't like that I rely on somebody in Richmond.
I would think that at this point, we should probably go to the next question. Great question, but I think it's something individually that they should answer when they get elected.
That's a little more official, I think.
Let me answer the first part of that question.
There you go. You're up.
I believe that anybody that works in the Allegheny school system should be fingerprinted and have a background check. Every teacher, coach, bus driver, or person selected to the school board should have a background check on them. And people say, well, why school board? I said, well, because they have access. They go into all the buildings. That's what we're trying to protect. I think anybody that works for the school system that's approved by the school board should have a background check.
Okay, who else? Do we have any other questions in the audience? We promise we won't check your background if we have.
We might already know it.
Yeah, who knows? Very good.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate audience. We all appreciate audience participation. I really hope that the voters got something out of this. I know I did, and I appreciate the time that both candidates gave to come here. And we're going to break into a discussion from the panel here in just a second. But again, we want to thank each of you. It's an important position, and we appreciate that you're taking it that way.
I want everybody to know that Mr. Woodson and I are not running against each other. Mr. Woodson's a write-in from Covington, and I'm on the ballot for Alleghany County. So we have a lot of things in common. I believe the school board would be very well off if both of us were on it.
Thank you again.
Appreciate it.
All right, as they walk away, we're going to just about get ready. We are a little bit ahead of schedule, which is great. And once we do that, we're going to have our MC break into song here in a second just to So no, we're gonna discuss some of their answers. I'd like to start with the first one that came to mind is, the background checks. It's interesting. I just read the Code of Virginia. I wasn't texting. I just read the Code of Virginia on fingerprint requiring for working in school boards and schools, and it says the school board must require everybody but them, it looks like. However, I did see, I think, where Virginia Beach has something in there that they require the school board to do that. So something the school board could require at some point, and then it would be what the discretion would be. But it was a really good answer by all of those on that. Anybody have any thoughts, any different or same or?
Yeah, I would like to, I agree. And I think we're all very familiar with an unfortunate situation that happened in our county here with an educator from a nearby county in the last couple weeks. And I think when you look at the greater concern of safety of our children, why would we not want to extend that requirement to the board members, anybody that is in contact with our children on a daily basis? If we can, the Chris Fisher situation of hiring him on, I think is a wonderful thing. I think everybody's very supportive of that. So it seems like we're willing to, somebody used the word think outside the box. Well, let's just stay outside. Let's just stay out of the box, and let's continue to look at ways to, improve or enhance security for our schools and our children.
Well, and I'll just touch real quick, being that I work in the school. Anybody that does enter the school is ID'd and stuff. So the school board members would be ID'd going in, and there's I believe a program on the computer that checks for whether they're a sex offender or things like that. So it's not as thorough as a background check, but there is a checks and balances there for anyone that enters the school. So, but background checks on school board members. I mean, we get them for volunteer coaches, and we get them for teachers, and yeah, anybody that volunteers at the school. Yep, substitutes. So I can see why it would not be a stretch.
Well, and as a former educator, I know that the teachers view those inequities. You know, we expect we don't like it. We never liked it when the people above us were not held to the same standard we were. So, and I'll leave it at that.
One of the interesting things I took away from this is, and it almost seems shocking, you know, they have trouble getting bus drivers, and apparently they're really struggling with that based on some of the complaints about ride times. And if that is factual, that the pay grade is the same for somebody that's been there 30 years or somebody that's been there 5 years or 5 weeks, that's something I hope if they get elected to the school board, whoever it may be, would look into that, because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why you're not recruiting bus drivers. It's you're not paying them, and they won't stay because of that. There's no incentive to stay. So look into those things that will make it easier. I did like the fact, because I did as much research as I could into the fact as to reasons why we're playing at other fields or they're playing at other fields. And I think it was a very valid answer to say the students deserve the best fields. It's about their safety. I just don't think that message has been parlayed to the community, because I was under the impression with a few people that I talked to that they thought that this was only as a result of the consolidation to appease people in other jurisdictions that were from Covington. I think it's great that they're looking at what the actual athlete is at risk by doing or not doing. So that was so informative. I think that may be one of the best things that came out of this.
And I think that's across the board in just about everything. All three of the debates is being very clear and being willing to discuss why we've made choices we've made on councils or boards or any of it. Like I said, if people want to be heard, they need to come speak, but then the people in positions of power also need to be willing to listen and then respond with why they've acted the way they've acted.
Any other input on anything before we turn it over to our MC? Doesn't appear to be.
You'll be happy to know we'll not sing.
He promises not to sing. Real quickly, I'd like to say thank you to the people that came here. It's important that you showed up for this. It's also important that in the future you show up for other meetings. Be there, because we heard where I think the very first Clifton Forest debate, they said, you know, we might have one person show up. And, you know, without that checks and balances, the council believes what they're doing is correct, because nobody's complaining. And of course, you always get the squeaky wheel on the internet, but show up, be there, hold them accountable for what you elected them for, because you're responsible for electing them. Hold them accountable.
Indeed, and it works both ways. Then you can ask them questions. And it's all about transparency. But yes, again, thank you for people showing up. Thank you for our candidates who came, and thank you for our panel. Everyone took some time out of their lives and hopefully improved your knowledge and helped you with your vote in all of this. Gene and JT and AJ, and boy, we're all initials tonight, aren't we? I'm going to start going by BK instead. And Corey, thank you so much. We had a good range of people and a good range of knowledge here. And we also wanted to thank the Virginia Review staff who arranged all of this. And especially we also want to thank our beautiful location, the Historic Masonic Theater, and note and congratulate Teresa Hammond, who's the new interim executive director of the Historic Theater. So you'll be seeing some new action and a new face in the leadership position here. But thank you for joining us, and we hope we've done some help for you with your votes tonight. Have a good evening.
And don't forget, you can go to the Virginian Review Facebook page, is it, that you can rewatch this. and really delve into the answers that were given. And I know he thanked the staff and everything. Specifically, I want to thank the Virginian Review. Scott, you've done a great job putting this together, and I think it was very informative for the public, so thank you. And also, that was the format in which the questions came. So thank you, Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel, Gene. Thank you for pointing that out. It's important to know that the Virginian Review put out a survey that said, what are your concerns? And every question that was asked was developed from that survey. So these are your questions. Thank you.